Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. I am Zamfira from Zamfira Games and this is another episode of the Wet Sox Zoo where everything has soggy feet. And in this episode I'm going to show you how to build this highly realistic giant otter habitat and also parts of the backstage area and their shelter that is inside. With the help of best practice guidelines that you can find online, I was able to build this habitat as realistic as I could build it in game, and I was focusing on the requirements for the giant otter that are not technically in game, but mostly for the real life giant otters. And I'm also going to teach you and tell you what is important for these animals and also some facts about the giant otter. So let's get started. And before we are going to start to talk about the habitat, you might have noticed that my channel has changed a little bit. Not too much, I've just changed my logo and basically the background. Just a really slight change. I just darkened the green color a little bit and basically the look of the logo. I don't have the little dinosaurs anymore, but instead I have this like older looking sketch of a tiger because I thought that I for now exclusively playing Planet Zoo and showing you animal stuff, so I thought it would be more fitting to have an animal instead of dinosaurs in my logo. But we will see what comes, especially if Frontier is finished with putting out new DLCs and updates for Planet Zoo. As you might know, we are getting a new DLC very soon. When you see this video, the latest live stream and announcement from Planet Zoo was just very shortly announced. I will also make a video about that, so you can find that on my channel if you haven't seen this one. And if you might know, Planet Zoo or Frontier is only going to release 4 more DLCs for this game. So we will see what happens after Frontier stops putting out new DLCs and if they still do like free updates or not, and what they might bring out next, if you will get another Planet Zoo game or maybe like a Planet Aquarium game. We will see, and the channel will adapt, of course. But even if the DLCs will stop, we will most likely still do some Planet Zoo videos. But we will see what time brings. But let's start to talk about this habitat. In case you haven't seen the latest episode, which was for the Asian small-clawed otter that are right behind this habitat. You can see a little bit of it in the background there. Basically, the theme for this part of the Wet Sox Zoo is going to be somewhat of the land of big and small, where I'm basically having 4 habitats, 2 of them which are for the Asian small-clawed otter and the giant otter that we are building right now, to basically show the comparison between the largest otter species and the smallest otter species, and 2 more habitats for the hippo and for the pygmy hippo, to also there show the biggest and smallest species. So this is the theme for this little part of the zoo, and we are doing the otters first. And with this habitat for the giant otter, I basically have like a very similar theme compared to the Asian small-clawed otter. But I definitely had a better vision this time. Last time with the smaller otters, I had a little bit of a problem to find like the vibe that I was going for, and to really like build up the habitat, especially the foliage. It was a little harder than usual. I am not too sure why. Maybe because they are such small animals with a decently sized habitat, and I couldn't quite figure out how to do the foliage. But it turned out pretty well in my opinion, and this time with a giant otter, since I have a little bit of experience building otter habitats now, I was able to do it even a little bit better than before, and I'm really happy with the result. So yeah, what I'm building here for the front of the habitat is basically again another underwater viewing area that we also have with the small otters. And if you will walk past the underwater viewing, there will be this stone wall where I have made these little holes in it that are filled with glass, of course, so that the guests can have a view inside the other part of the habitat, basically the dry part of the habitat, and not through a normal glass wall, but rather through the rocks and have another view. I saw that with other habitats in the latest zoo that I visited, and I wanted to include something like that. So I thought that it would be really cute and be just something different if you would have like not a full glass wall, but instead just little peeking holes where you can look inside and take a look. Take a nice view of the animals, and also the animals would probably be less stressed and like basically less disturbed, since there is not that much of a viewing area for the guests, so the otters can have like really a lot of space where they can just basically hide from the eyes of the viewers, because of course they also want to have some privacy. And similar to the small-clawed otter, I also again did this little fountain, which is really cute. Just makes sure that the water hole always stays filled with fresh water. And also it looks really nice for the guests, and also the otters could have some fun in their playing. I also use the little enrichment items that are like these little water thingies. I don't even know what they're called. But I thought it would look really cute. And I basically did it very similar to the other habitat, so I don't really know what to tell you about this one. But unfortunately, I was not able to use the underwater feeding. I don't know why. I mean, the water hole is not ginormous. It is pretty small, but as I said in the beginning, I use best practice guidelines to make my habitats, and do not rely entirely on the Planet Zoopedia, because I want to give my habitats a really realistic look, how it would be in real life. And so I used their like requirements, what they put out there, and there it says that the water should not take more than a third or a fourth of the whole habitat, so that the most part of the habitat should be like some kind of dry ground or like grass and stuff like that, and only a maximum of a third of the habitat should be water. So that's why it kept somewhat small compared to maybe other creators which have these really beautiful and ginormous swimming areas where the animals can dive and swim around, which are very beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I'm just taking a little different approach to my habitats. So I really just want to show what a realistic zoo would look like, or yeah, basically what I would see in different zoos. And I personally haven't seen these ginormous swimming areas for smaller animals like otters. Or at least I wasn't in a zoo that they have them, but I feel like most zoos don't have these ginormous and big budget things, because of course the bigger the water hole, the bigger the budget has to be, because you need to keep it clean and just need to build it basically, of course. So yeah, that's why it's kept relatively small, and maybe that's also the reason why I couldn't use the underwater feeder. I tried a lot of things. I tried to place it differently, and I also made the bathing area a little deeper than it is right now in the video. But just a little bit. I didn't change anything else in there, but it still wasn't deep enough. And also, sadly, the giant otters do not dive in this water. It should be big enough, I believe, just from the size, but the hitbox seems to be pretty off. The water is around 4 meters deep, and they still do not dive. So that's really weird. I don't know why, but the hitbox just seems a little bit off, in my opinion. But yeah, I think we're gonna live with it, and it shouldn't be too bad that the otters wouldn't dive in this game. But of course, in real life, they would definitely dive in this water hole. And what I read in those best practice guidelines was that the shoreline of the waterhole shouldn't be too like steep, or it should be a pretty gentle slope and no sudden drop off. So that's why I had to keep the shoreline pretty gentle sloping, and also a little area where it would generally be really shallow, the water, so that older animals or very young animals have it very easy to go inside the water, and also have a little chill out area in the water that wouldn't be too deep, and they would also be able to stand in the water. And that normally the zoos also add these little brackets or like logs at the shoreline, so that the otters don't carry in too much dirt and stones and stuff like that into the water, and to keep the water area pretty clean. In this case, I use a natural water source, so I don't really have it laid out with concrete or stuff like that. But I use this really natural look because it just fits more with the theme of the zoo, which is all very natural looking, and just also like seeing what the normal terrain looks like, and trying not to do too many changes, and basically work around the terrain that we already have in this area. So that's why I did this the way I did it in this case. And the habitat should also have some sort of barriers, like visual barriers, for the animals to like hide from the guests, for example, or also from other otters. Not because they don't like each other, but maybe because they just want some privacy. So that's why I also added this huge a log in the habitat where they could technically jump onto and chill out and have a nice view over their little territory, and also to hide behind there and have some privacy. And also, of course, we use a lot of enrichment items, because otters are pretty intelligent and just need a lot to stimulate them and to not get them too bored. So that's why we did that. And before I start to tell you how I built the backstage area that we are starting right now, and why I did certain things the way I did, I just want to talk with you about the giant otter itself and tell you some facts about the giant otter. And as the name might already suggest, the giant otter is the biggest species of otters, and is around double the size of the smallest otter species, which is the Asian small-clawed otter. And the giant otter can get up to 1.8 meters long, which is more than I'm like big. So they can get really big, and they are really social animals and normally live in like families. So there's one bonded pair that lives with their offspring of multiple generations, and they live in groups from 2 to 20 animals in the wild. And that's also the reason why I only have two giant otters right now, which is one male and one female. And after some time, they will of course have some cubs, and then we will have this bigger family that is just everyone's related to one another. And that's also how I understood it, the best way to keep otters to not have like unrelated females, for example, in a group, and basically leave it with their family like grouping system, let's say. And the numbers of giant otters in the wild are sadly decreasing, and they are also endangered due to the loss of their natural habitat, and they also got excessively hunted until the late 90s, 70s because of their fur. They really have this super dense fur that keeps them dry even if they are swimming, because they have just so many hairs in a such little space, that the water cannot penetrate through their fur and get to their skin, and that's one reason why they got hunted. They are still getting like legally hunted, so that's also one reason why they are very endangered. And the giant otter is a diurnal carnivore that feeds mainly on fish, but if fish are not available, it will also hunt like smaller caimans, snakes, and even anacondas. And in the wild, they do not have any natural threat besides the human himself. They can hunt as a single, as a pair, or even hunt in a group with their family, and they do not store their food, but instead will go out, find a little spot, almost like a little picnic spot, and eat their food there. And now coming back to what we are building in here. As you can see, we started to build the backstage area. And for the backstage area, it is important that they have 2 to 3 rooms in the backstage area, each with a little water pool that is like also gently sloped, as I did here. And they also need some nesting boxes that I will build in a couple minutes. And of course, some enrichment items, their food and water. And they also need a little sand pit that we will also do for them. And since the giant otter could technically climb up the fences that we are building as a barrier, I also decided to put a fence on top of this whole structure as a roof instead of using hot wire. The indoor area should be at least 75 square meters big, and around 25% water, or a maximum of 25% water in there. So that's why we only have these 2 small pools in each of the little rooms. And it is also important to have some kind of brushes at the entrance that you will see later. I use the brooms that we have in the game and put them inside the wall, so only like the brushes stick out. And that is needed because the giant otter does not shake off excess water when it comes like from swimming, for example, and to keep the inside area and especially the nesting box pretty dry and like clean for the most part, it is required to have some kind of brushing off system, so that the excess water will be brushed off from the otters when they enter the indoor area. It normally also would be needed at the entrance of the nesting box, as one that I'm building right now. But since we only have a whole broom and not a like single brush, I couldn't do that here because, of course, in the wall I could hide the handle of the broom, and I couldn't do that with the nesting box, so I had to keep it open and only did like a small ledge and the entrance. That is important if the female has cubs in the nesting box, so that the cubs will not fall out of the nesting box, and therefore there's just a little ledge in the entrance. I later made the nesting boxes a little smaller, around half the size that they are now. How you can see them, just because they were a little bit too big for the inside area that I built, and because there wasn't like any free space at the fence to make the little throw feeder that we need. So I made it smaller so that I could add the throw feeder. Since it is not suggested that the staff enters the habitat or the indoor areas while the otters are inside. So that's why we have this little throw feeder with their little like bowl or something like that, where the food would fall onto and the otter could then eat it. And giant otters actually do not prefer to have any bedding inside of their nesting boxes. It is actually the case that otters have taken out the bedding of their nesting boxes and basically throw them out. So that's why there is no bedding inside, and instead they would be just wood and maybe some sort of lining on the inside, so it would be easier to clean. And of course, the staff has an opportunity to open the nesting box and have access inside to, for example, look after cubs, the otter itself, or just for cleaning purposes. The giant otter should also be kept mostly outside, but they should have some opportunity to go inside so that they could be, for example, trained, treated, or maybe if an animal is sick, so that they can be kept for a short period of time in such an inside area. And when, for example, the female has cubs, so that it can be kept inside and that it can take care of the cubs on the inside and they wouldn't run around on the outside and probably like fall into the deep water or something like that. So especially if the cubs are still very young, so they can be just kept safe and sound inside. And of course, we have multiple sliding doors for each of the rooms and also for the outside doors, let's say. And the staff also has access. And on the left side, where you can see the door right now, there will be also a door with an airlock to make sure that the otters do not try to escape when the staff tries to enter the habitat, if they should enter the habitat when the giant otter is still out. And we are almost at the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and that you could learn something from me. And if you liked it, leave me a comment and a like. And if you want to see more, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And I wish you a lot of fun with the cinematics where I show off the whole habitat. And I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, bye guys!